Hello. Hey, Moody Paul, how you doing? I've been on roughly every Monday and Friday, except for recently with family stuff going on. About the same. Just the more I look around me, the harder it is to plan for a future. No, just... I don't like... when it feels like we have no real decision in things. And there's just too much going on that makes me think that's more commonplace than people think right now. Hard to describe, but it's just the overall feeling I have. Yeah. Like a lot of other people, I'm getting tired of being told what's best for me by people who don't even live in the same reality I do. Well, the main difference here is I can say fuck Keir Starmer and not be arrested for it. Exactly. At the same time, I wish I could go over there and be a Blade Runner for a couple nights. Just because I feel like, I don't know. Just something needs to be done. And what I would really like, right, is I would like to read a news headline that says, you know, somebody arrested or somebody detained or somebody, you know, people that we're expecting this to happen to because of things they're discovering. I'd like to see that headline and actually see it be true and not somebody, oh, sorry, we're just expositioning on the possibility that it might happen, but probably won't. You know, I'm just like, you know what? Until you're going to give us a solid fact, shut the fuck up. Well, I've seen how those things are constructed. You don't need angle grinders, you just need 4 strong men and a rope. And is it telling that, you know, you've got these groups known as Blade Runners that are going around doing this, right? How long till they ban angle grinders and sawzalls? Why haven't they done it yet? I mean, they banned samurai swords, right? Because, you know, most of the crimes are being done with kitchen knives. And what next? It's ridiculous. Or even a pencil. A ballpoint pen. A piece of aluminum tube dragged on the ground. Hey, Alex. Yeah, sorry I'm on so late. Just, I don't know. I'm having kind of a day. Not in a bad mood, but I'm feeling very apathetic today, for lack of a better description. And then what? All the tradies will have to lock up their tools at the job site? Only to be stolen by the very people who are using the kitchen knives to commit the crimes? My real wonder is when when are they going to get a little taste of the spirit of 1776 over there? I keep seeing articles on the IRA resurfacing. I don't I don't believe there's really a lot of truth to it. And if it is it for the same reason or is it for a new one? This fucking phone. Well, if things keep going the way they are, it's going to be a lot more than that soon enough. Hey Fenrir, how you doing? Any season's marching season if you're pissed enough. I'm doing alright. Just, I was saying earlier, I'm just feeling apathetic. Looking at all the latest news going on that's being crammed down my throat every time I even look somewhere. It's got me. I don't know. I hope the world figures out what the fuck it's doing with itself, but if it doesn't, I'm ready to pack up and disappear. Because I'm fucking sick of it. Yeah, we're just doing a sloppy wash on this and the camel. Sorry for venting my brain out, just... I'm just wondering... It feels like that humanity as a whole has surpassed a snapping point. And we haven't done it, and I'm wondering why. Injections for what? Well, that's just it. Where I live, if the so-called, the suicide Slav in charge of Russia does what he claims he wants to do, where I live is a first strike target. I won't know anything until the mountainside next to my house turns into a giant sunball. At least then I wouldn't have to worry about it. That's just it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of it being presented in a way that makes it feel like it's at our back door. It is yours, but I mean mine. And I hate to sound isolationist, but... And it's been said before the last 2 times it happened, but it's a European problem. But the last time we said, oh, it's a European problem, somebody got us involved. Either by sinking a ship or sinking a bunch of ships. What's it gonna take this time? Oh, gotcha. So you got a joint that you shouldn't have, basically. I don't even want to start slinging names. Current, past, it doesn't matter. It's been going on since 2014. You know, why is it NATO, or not NATO, why is it the UN stepped in Yugoslavia, right? But they haven't stepped in here? Why has it become such a different problem? And I know very well what was going on in Yugoslavia. So that's my question. With what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, where's the UN in all this? They keep saying they'll come after us for our guns and shit, but where is it now? No, I get you there with the only fix being pain management, but for me, pain management means me no work no more, because I couldn't legally drive, you know, so it's just Motrin and downtime for me. And I don't even do a lot of the Motrin anymore, I just deal with it. I just don't want to be drugged up. I tried the shots. I was in more pain after the shot than I was without it. My back actually spasmed harder after the shot than it had before. Just trying to give this kind of like a dirty layer before we go removing most of it around the details. I haven't had a bad spasm in a few years. Every now and then I'll get a little bit of a wiggle back there that tells me, hey, ease up, but it's been a while since I've had a bad spasm. And he won't give up, Alex. That's just it. He's already quoted as having said that the Soviet Union technically still exists, supposedly. He just wants to get the outlying territories back. So after Ukraine, there's Poland. After Poland, what? Lithuania? Gonna move on into Italy. Take a little bit of Turkey. I'm sure the Turks would love that. Oh wait, the Turks buy their shit. So yeah. No, when it hit me, I was down for 2 weeks. I couldn't walk. But this is how the last small disagreement started, Alex. A little man said, "Oh, it's just Poland," or "Oh, it's just France." And then what? Hi, Allie. But yeah, given yesterday's events, this is no longer a Cold War type scenario. This is a definite hot war. This isn't little skirmishes anymore. Call me the canary in the coal mine, but fucking World War III has started. The rest of the world just doesn't know it yet. We're gonna let this dry for a minute, and while that dries, well, either my swelling has receded, which is why I haven't had a lot of spasms lately, or the nerve that's been getting pinched has finally severed. I haven't noticed any like significant reduction in that area in terms of mobility, but it's a lot harder for the spasms to happen. Short term, it still gets like really tight and really fucked up, but I haven't had a debilitating one, which has put me on the ground with my muscles all the way up to my ribs, squeezing tight. That's another reason I don't want to go back to the VA, though, is I've gotten too much bullshit from them that makes me not want to trust their evaluations. And I know Ares has been trying to help me get that evaluated, and everything here is so backed up I can't even be seen. you're not totally wrong, Alex. I understand that Germany has the stigma of basically the first half of the 20th century to look back on. And the other countries as well probably aren't want to go back into that position. But I'm sorry, it's coming to that. There is no escaping it. There is no more diplomatic solution to be had. Well, the main reason it's backlogged isn't for, like, everyone's like, oh, it's all the new soldiers coming back and this and that. There are a lot of us. I'm not discounting that or discrediting that. It's all the World War II and Vietnam vets that are still left. There's more of them than us by far. More Vietnam than World War II at least. But they're the ones advancing in age, requiring more scrutiny and requiring more effort. And that's what's really causing a bigger backlog. I mean, you got a sizable portion of veterans that are in their 70s and 80s now. Where do you think they're going for their treatment, especially with hospital costs the way they are? It's completely understandable. And I hate to say it, in the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot of that clear up. I mean, as good as it was seeing my mother and father when they came down this last week, I know I'm going to be making a trip to Florida here within the next, or 2 trips, within the next 5 years. I can feel it. I guess there's just a lot on my mind lately that's making me feel really old. My son graduating high school. I mean, it's hard to describe to some people, but it really feels like he was just born and we were just leaving England yesterday. It doesn't feel like 2006 was 19 years ago. And that's fucking with me. I'm not gonna lie. And there's things I want to do. Like, not like grand plans, you know. But I want to get out to Texas to visit Jeremy. I haven't seen him since I left England. We got my son's trip coming up. That he's going to be going on. There's just a lot coming up, and it's catching up to me. I'm feeling my age. Yeah, we got a VA center up in Ogden too, but again, it's backed up. And just even for me, it's not even about the money. Everyone's like, oh, you can get this and that. I'm like, it's not about the money. And obviously, you need money to live without bullshit. I just don't want to be bothered anymore. And it's not some definitive feeling you can put a finger on for me. It's more abstract. I'm just tired of being tired up here. I spend enough time living in crisis mode. I want to get out of it. And it just feels like every time I turn around, there's some other crisis happening that I don't have control of, that I have to worry about somebody else pulling their head out of their ass to fix. It's like, I feel like for my son's sake, I'm putting on a front, being supportive while he's trying to get into college and all this and all that. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I going to be evacuating this area in a week because somebody's got some ballistic missiles they want to use? And there's probably people out there thinking, oh, you live in Utah. There's nothing there. And you can look this up on Google. This is not any kind of sensitive, classified, or any kind of information like that. I live outside one of the gates to one of the most vital aircraft depots in the United States. If it's got an F designation, it gets serviced here. The only aircraft that doesn't come through here is the F-15. 22, 35, 16, A-10, C-130. This is their logistical heart. And there's a lot of other programs. You can Google them to see what I'm talking about. This is a first strike target. Yugoslavia was its own kind of fucked up. Because of what was going on, you know. It was old grudges that they existed long ago and were held under during the events of the First and Second World War, and then they were completely repressed during the Cold War while Yugoslavia was occupied by the Soviet Union. And then once the wall fell, old grudges were allowed to fester and come to the fore again. And what people saw there was so disgusting that no, it shouldn't happen again, regardless of what side you're on. And my sister-in-law, well, ex-sister-in-law now, my brother's ex-wife. Hey, Fenrir. See you later. She's from Sarajevo, so I know somebody who's dealt with it personally, her and her family. And I know that the occupying forces saw some shit there. And I know it's a bit dramatized for TV, but it's also a decent example of how hands were tied. But if you're able to find it, look up the BBC produced movie or miniseries, Warriors. Not the film about street gangs in a post-apocalyptic New York, but about the British occupation of their zone in Yugoslavia and a warrior company, and what they saw and what they dealt with. While it's not exactly autobiographical to any one unit, it's based on examples taken from people who were there. And that can give you kind of an inkling of the kind of shit that was going on there. And still not scratch the surface. Okay. Sorry for such a depressing stream, guys. I'm trying to be in a decent headspace. I'm just down today. I don't know. So yeah, you have your own version of it. So that's actually kind of good, because guess what we made about our involvement? And our involvement over there was massive. Nothing. There is not a single program that I recall being made that was broadcast nationally to discuss what happened in Yugoslavia. About the only thing that I've seen was there's a couple of documentaries, but they're obviously UK documentaries on the Discovery Channel. But the only American-made media that even shines a light on what happened over there is fucking Behind Enemy Lines. Off the top of my head, that is the only American-made media I can think of that even touched on that subject in a manner for the general public. If somebody else knows something else, show me. Link me, message me with it, I don't care. But everything else is either BBC made or otherwise. I mean, hell, I played a Scorpion tank commander in a BBC documentary about Operation Telic. I can't find that documentary anywhere. There's a couple clips you'd see me in the vehicle. A much younger me, but me nonetheless. But the main thing I'm tired of seeing is I like to use YouTube as entertainment, right? And I know I've brought this up before. I'm tired of their you might be interested in being a whole bunch of talking heads wearing their little hoodies and their little hats and even their sunglasses indoors on their podcast, talking about how cooked or how fucked or how screwed somebody is because of whatever latest headline, when it turns out they're not. I mean, the kind of thing that they're saying they're fucked over for honestly should have them executed for treason, and nothing's happening. So I want real news, and by that I don't mean the stupid, oh, you're fake news kind of stuff. I want result. I want news with a result. I'm tired of news of possibilities and theory and rumor. And I don't want it shoved down my throat from 10 different directions when the rumor hits and they treat it like fact, right? I might have to get the paper towel into action here. But I also just don't like it when, I turn on my computer and get onto my feed to watch, another StesFix video, or to tune in on you know, just somebody else's channel, the Running Man's or whatever, and instead I'm just bombarded by bullshit headlines with no actual fact or result. Tired of clickbait. And clicking not interested doesn't help, because you say you're not interested in one channel or one topic, and they just replace it with 3 others. It's like, okay, when I say I'm not interested, I mean, I don't want any of it. If I want it, I'm going to search it out myself. I mean, maybe they should add a do not recommend topic button as well as do not recommend channel. I hate when I get like this. I'm sorry, guys. What depot did they hit? Was it the Swedish depot, or was it a legitimate target? So this is a hover vehicle that's like the Nut Rocker. So I will be dusting it up and streaking it with a lot more stuff. Just trying to get the initial grime layer in. Oh, so he was angry at first until he realized what they hit. Gotcha. What's funny is that's not the first instance in history where a tank had been used as improvised artillery. Look up some of the Korean War battles. They actually made berms for like the Pershing tank to ride up on to elevate the gun more and actually use it as 90mm artillery. lower hull done. Let's get the upper hull a little bit now. Because I don't want to clean it all off, because it does add something to the cast texture. After I do most of the weathering, I'm going to come back in and detail this little open hatch. Ah, my face. What was that, Ares? I figured it was your way of saying you were home because you were on Twitch doing that. And you haven't missed much. I've just put the detail wash on this and bitched a lot about the sad state of affairs that the world's in. And I know my thoughts are probably mirrored by a lot of people around the country, or even around the world. It's really fucking depressing. No, Stripes I did last stream, so that's while you were traveling home from work that day. And decals I did off stream because they took a little while and they're boring to watch because it's just me putting them on and then hitting them with microsol to get them to conform. That was it. I don't know. I guess I'm just feeling melancholy too. I want this to leave streaks like it is, just not as big as that. I'm guessing Moody Paul took off too. Or he fell asleep. Well, yeah, if you're gonna take out a sniper, you want to be sure that even if you miss, you hit. Alright, that's been cleaned up a bit. We'll let that dry for a sec. While that's drying, we'll work on the camel. Get same part of the process. Get the old excess wash off. I'm gonna try using just this dampened paper towel on some of the larger areas here. Yeah, when you're using something that big, it is more of a to whom it may concern kind of response. Kind of like using a 40mm grenade launcher for a warning shot. I guess I did the cast texture a lot heavier on this. It's grabbing onto the grime a bit better. I do like how it toned down the colors, though. They were still reading a bit too bright for me. Is that it for that music? Oh, yep. I think. Yeah, it was. And with that, we'll take this as a moment to do one of our first move around breaks, because it's been an hour. So I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Sorry I took so long. I had to take care of some laundry and some other things while I was upstairs. As far as the Booker, yeah, it feels like there was a time that the military was in a very experimental place on the weapons it wanted to make. Kind of a gray area in the late 50s, early 60s. Some cool shit came of it, but a lot of stuff was wasted for development. And a lot of what I'm seeing coming up now, and I've got to glue that back on, great. Look up the XM808 Twister and some of the other platforms derived from that. And the year that it was being tested. And then look up a lot of the other vehicles that they were working on in that same time period. It really feels like we're repeating that same era of technological fuck around and find out. We're not making shit practical, we're making it experimental and different and divergent and all these other buzzwords. And ultimately, 95% of them are going to get canceled. Look up the M60A2 and the idea behind that. The Sergeant York. All failed systems. Interesting ideas, but ultimately overly complex for what the mission required of the vehicle. And I know there's at least 2. I'd have to see if I could find the pictures again. 2, maybe 3 disarmed Sergeant York chassis down at Dugway Proving Grounds waiting to be shot up as targets. And I think a few M60A2s as well. Most of the A2s were converted back over to bridge carrier or regular gun tanks. But yeah, there was a lot of really, you almost want to say bullshit harebrained ideas that we did. Like the Sergeant York should have been the American equivalent to what the Flak Panzer Gepard was. Or the ZSU-23. But kinda like the early F-22, they tried to make it do too much before it was in use, instead of concentrating on making sure the basics could work. The Booker was supposed to be an air-droppable light tank. Basically the new version of the M551 Sheridan. Or an air transportable at least, by something smaller than C5s and things like that. They're trying to go back to the idea of a medium tank. I don't know how many prototypes were produced. I know there was a demo model. I've seen the video of it. Really not an impressive design. And by that I mean, when you look at it, you think, how the hell is that going to survive in combat? You don't think, oh, hey, that's a tank. It can do a tank job. You know? similar to the Striker. Why we stepped backwards into using wheels in a combat scenario with something like the Striker, I don't know. Especially with the size of the Striker. And people would have said, well, look at the LAV-25. LAV-25 is smaller than Striker. Striker's fucking massive. There's really a lot of McNamara level stupidity going on that's just, I don't know. It just reminds me of that between the wars, between Korea, Vietnam era, when we tried to revamp our military. And we tried it in the wrong way. Like, the reason the Abrams is even so effective in the Gulf War is that, yeah, it had thermals and it had all this other stuff, but we made sure the basic systems required worked and added the rest. The M1A1 was a further development from the standard M1 with the 105. And it had those capabilities, but at the same time, we made sure that those basic design capabilities worked. We didn't care that it had a trophy defense style system back then, or if it had, you know, interlinking and all that. We just wanted to make sure that it could engage a target and shoot it before the other target could. And we've kind of gone back into that overly complicated out the gate mindset. But that's also why the F-35, as much as I dislike the airframe, the program has been handled better. The F-22 was already past most of its design service life by the time it fully and adequately entered service. They spent so much time throwing more capabilities at it instead of utilizing the airframe and getting it out there. And that's what's happening again. We're wasting so much time developing these ultimate weapons that we're not concentrating on just making sure our troops have good weapons. Like I just read somewhere that they're getting the particle beam lasers back up for the F-16 and the F-22 and the F-35 again. And everyone's like, ooh, this is so cool, so new. It's been around since 2002. They had to go back to the drawing board somehow or some reason. That's degrunged enough. Let's work on the legs for a minute. Yeah, I forget who Booker was exactly, but I know the name trend follows with George Patton and Crichton Abrams, General Sherman, naming the tanks after former Army commanders. I used to know who Booker was, I just forget right now. I can't recall off the top of my head. And even then, I mean, if you look at tank design, people say, "Oh, it's obsolete now with drones." It's not. There's always going to be a need for a big metal box with guns on it. Well, you got to wonder what have we got in the pipeline now? If the F-22 was basically already ready for retirement by the time it entered service, and the F-35 is now nearing the end of its initial 20-year run, what's next? But at the same time, why are we developing it? And I don't mean that in a way of, warmongering or anything else like that, but why are we developing it? What do they know? Right? But back to the tank. Without some kind of major technological advancement in terms of control systems, metallurgy, things like that, the tank's gone as far as it can go. We can reappropriate how it does what it does, but as far as the basics of what a tank is, there ain't much more you can do with it. And even the Sheridan wasn't that great as an airdroppable medium or light tank. It had multiple problems with its missile firing system. And some of the workarounds for that, if you read into the tank itself, were fucking hilarious. Like, apparently the Shillelagh missile had some kind of kickback when fired that it would actually shake the circuit boards out of the control module after a few shots. The fix, and I'm surprised they didn't run into this in the factory, and it's why you see it in a lot of armored vehicles now, the fix was to put a foam pad on the inside of the box cover to hold the circuit boards in place. But that and the missiles also had a permeable casing on them. I think the rounds did too. The ammunition for it that was highly susceptible to moisture, so they'd become ineffective then too. Because it was a casing that could burn up. Obviously they fixed that because the Sheridan was in use up until 92. But that's the same gun that was in the M60A2, but then they piled on all these other system requirements to the M60, which made it a maintenance nightmare because apparently it was breaking all the time. I mean, I can understand always trying to push the boundaries of technology with test platforms. Kind of like what the XB-70 turned into. It was meant to be a extremely supersonic nuclear bomber. turned out to be a bit more of a handful than they were expecting, and because of some conventions that came around at the time, our ability to have more than 2 of them was hindered. The first one crashed after a F-104 got sucked into it. Like, quite literally, the wind vortex of the airframe sucked the F-104 into it. Over and into it, actually. But after that, they used the existing one until the end of its career as a testing platform for supersonic weapons and other airframe ideas. They just put testing equipment on it. So I can understand creating or designing something as a test bed, right? So like, say, I think they actually did it with the M60. Before the Abrams went full on, they put the 120mm in the M60 for a bit as a test bed to make sure that particular system worked. You know, we had all these other vehicles. They made sure that everything that culminated in the Abrams worked before they put it together. They didn't put the tank together, then throw all the systems in it and go, okay, work please. And that's kind of what they did with the F-22. They put all the systems in it, or they made this plane, shoved all this crap in it, and said, work please. And then surprise Pikachu face when it didn't. And they had to go back to the drawing board. There's even pictures out there, you could probably look it up, when the Germans were making the Leopard 2. They put the turret, just to make sure that everything for the turret worked. And it was probably a stopgap measure too. I don't know the whole story behind it, but from what I can gather, they took the Leopard 2 turret and put it on an M48. I don't know if it was they were trying to make sure they could still use a lot of the M48 stuff that they had into the future, or if they were making sure the Leopard 2 turret worked properly. Like I said, I never figured out the whole story behind that. It's probably something similar to the M60 2000, where after the Abrams was introduced, they saw that, oh, we still had a shit ton of M60s sitting around that proved themselves viable in the Gulf War. Why don't we put an Abrams turret on it, give it some side skirts, upgrade the diesel a little bit, and send it on its way? It never caught on, but it did happen. I've slathered as much off of that as possible. These are too soaked. Oh, man. So, let's get the dull coat out. We'll dull this up. And I think another reason for developing the F-55 is the F-22 is old. It's approaching 30 now. The F-35's hitting 20. The F-15E, as recent and freshly developed as most of those airframes are, is also hitting 40 for the most part across the fleet. Yeah, that's the other problem we're going to run into, especially right now, is we're requiring all these changes and upgrades to certain munitions that not everybody has. And which is, I mean, you can't say it's what we kind of simplified, because if I remember right, while the Abrams uses the same 120mm smoothbore cannon as the Leopard 2, there's something about our version of it where the ammunition from the Leopard can't be used in the Abrams because there's a difference in the breech and how it engages. There's something really stupid like that. I just used this 10 minutes before the stream. Why is it doing this now? Well, that's why for the longest time, everybody had the same 105mm gun. And then when the Abrams, Challenger, and Leopard all took off in their own respective paths, everybody went with different ammo. If you notice, you know, the Abrams shared the same 105 as the M60 for the longest time, until they knew that the M60 was leaving service. Hence the M1A1 came out right around that same time with the 120mm in it, which is, from what I understand, it was always planned to have it, but logistically, up until that time, it made sense, because you got the Abrams and the M60 working in concert with each other between the Marines and the Army. So why not have just the same ammo? And then by the time the first Gulf War happened, the Abrams was around in enough numbers that it justified having its own supply chain and its own ammo type. So they went ahead with the A1. I just think they were surprised with the effectiveness of the M60 in the first Gulf War. I know a guy who was a crew on a M60A1. They got hit by a T-72 and all it did was knock out their radio antennas. It's also not hard to see how the Challenger 2, or even the Challenger 1 really, the Leopard 2, and the Abrams all derive something from the MBT-70 project. Because that's where the core of all their designs started from. And then when the project was scrapped, each side took their own little lessons from it and applied it to their next generation of tank. But what's funny is both the British and the Germans stayed with a diesel platform, where the Americans went with the turbine platform. And I think the only other tanks out there to have a turbine are certain variants of the T-80 and the T-90. The STRV-103 has one, but it's not its primary engine. It's a we got discovered, let's get the hell out of here fast type of engine. But the Abrams is the first one to have it, you know, full-time, this is my only engine kind of thing. There was some other weird stuff that came out of the MBT-70 program. One of the versions, the commander would have, I think it was the commander, had his own cupola that he could train on. Was it the commander or the driver? I forget which one. But somebody had their own cupola that was independent of the tank's motion, but it was causing vertigo because it wasn't like you were sitting directly in it. It wasn't direct vision. It was the weirdest damn thing. I forget which one it was. Well, the British were also like, well, we know the IS series of tanks is a thing, so we're going to build the Conqueror. Which is essentially like them saying, okay, we like the idea of the mouse, but we want it to go faster. And that they did. Sorry, started gravitating a little off camera there. cockpit does look pretty cool. Come on, autofocus. Be nice. Not my best figure paint, but you're also seeing it like 5 times larger than it should be. Behind the glass, it actually looks right. I'm gonna have to do a trip to Hobby Lobby this week at some point after work. I am out of dull coat, and I'm gonna need more. And I forgot to turn on my fan. Give me 1 second, guys. I appreciate everybody hanging out, though. Sorry about my little... I can only describe it as a manic episode earlier. I'm just... I dislike it when the rest of the world and media feel the need to make what's going on important by invasion. Whenever that happens, it just really gets to me, because it's like, okay, I just want to wake up in the morning, have my coffee, and work on a model on my day off. Not wake up and see reports of Tu-95s being blown up in a fashion that even Tom Clancy would be happy to write about. So from here, oh, no worries, Alex. I know you have a life, and I'm just a streamer. What was I gonna say? Do I put more effort into finishing the camel first, or do I just wrap up the Oskar and get it out of the way? The camel takes a little more effort, the Oskar, not so much. probably just push ahead on the Oskar, to be honest. Actually, for all I know, I might take a run to Hobby Lobby today. It's early enough. I just don't know how bad traffic's going to be out there right now. Because I kind of let this dry before I can do much else with it. So I know not too much of a difference. Just looks a little grimier and it's flat. So I'm probably just going to wrap up here. Next stream day will be Friday. As far as the week after that, I don't know yet. The schedule's not out yet, and that's when life gets a little hectic again. So there might be another week-long period where I'm not able to stream. I'll keep you updated on that, and I'll let you know Friday what's going on with that. So, but yeah, I think we'll just cut stream here for now. Let these dry. I gotta go get some supplies. And, yeah, I'll just catch you all later. It's been about 2 hours anyway. Sorry for the shorter stream. Sorry for being kind of a downer. Just